Militant feminist group known as Jane's Revenge issues Communique calling for Night of Rage upon the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
I'm staring into the rain.
All right, guys, hello and welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. Today we're going to have a discussion about Roe v. Wade. We're going to be having a discussion about the militant feminist group known as Jane's Revenge and the string of firebombings on anti-abortion facilities masquerading as women's health clinics. So obviously the overturning of Roe v. Wade has been in the news cycle recently. It's looking like the Supreme Court, the SCOTUS, with a conservative majority, is likely to overturn Roe v. Wade, a ruling which has stood since, I think 1974, sometime in the 70s, which, guaranteed on a federal level a woman's right to abortion. We did some coverage on this sometime back when Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed to the Supreme Court, and we sort of speculated on what that might mean for the Supreme Court as a whole, speculated on, would they take the axe to Roe v. Wade? And I think in that video I talked about it seemed unlikely at the time that they would actually axe Roe v. Wade. I took the position that what they would likely do is kind of just turn a blind eye to states that were going to, put in anti-abortion laws, kind of whittle away at the, pro-choice rights that women have had in certain states, i.e. Texas is a great example of the sort of legislation that the Supreme Court was taking a blind eye to. I kind of made the assumption that they would just look the other way. I mean, they're going to have a conservative majority. I mean, what is it, 6-3 or something right now? I kind of took the position that they'd probably just turn a blind eye to whatever the states wanted to do and just never bring it before the Supreme Court rather than actually take an axe to Roe v. Wade. I assume that would be the case because I figured they wouldn't want to cause the upheaval. I figured they would sort of, try to avoid, stirring up the mob, so to speak, by just sort of being silent on the situation. Looks like I was wrong on that. I mean, this is a greater trend of, evangelical theocracy slowly worming its way into every aspect of American culture and political institutions. I mean, on the one hand, you have, unfettered capitalism and all the dark money with that, and the lobbying, just carving out, just hollowing out our civil liberties and our societal institutions, right? And coupled alongside that, you have this alliance between corporate money and fascism and these sort of theocrats, right? And these theocrats are using things like the abortion issue to, manufacture consent for, all the fucked up corporate shit they're doing. I mean, it's a whole pyramid interwoven scheme between, fascists, white supremacists, theocrats, corporatocrats, technocrats, things like that. But that's a discussion for another time. We're going to get into the topic here of Jane's Revenge. If you haven't heard of Jane's Revenge, they are a militant feminist group. They've been around for some time. We'll get into that with the reading, I believe, since even the 70s. But recently, they seem to have made a resurgence, had a sort of rebirth. They tend to have an anarchist perspective on the world, although I'm sure there's many Marxist-Leninists mixed in there as well. It's a very horizontal group. As far as I'm aware, there is no hierarchical organizational structure like you'd expect in a Marxist-Leninist organization. Very anarchist, very horizontal, which, as we'll read later, has some benefits as to the sort of actions they've been doing. But they've been in the news recently because back in about a month ago, there was a firebombing on one of these, quote-unquote, women's clinics that masquerade as women's clinics, but really they're ran by like anti-abortion, pro-life organizations, right? And it's one of these things where women go in trying to get reproductive health. This thing gets good reviews on Yelp or whatever. they go in because they're considering an abortion or whatever women's health. I mean, I'm a man. I don't know what all goes into that. Not my place to say, right? But, you know, it was one of these organizations in Madison, Wisconsin, actually real close to here, about 3 hours away, where a woman goes in, they want to inquire about an abortion, inquire about contraceptives, and it turns out to be a bunch of theocratic weirdos running the show, right? So Jane's Revenge has been, you know, relevant again because they firebombed this clinic, upon which they issued a communique saying that, you know, pro-lifers, theocrats could expect more of this kind of violence if Roe v. Wade is overturned. But yeah, guys, so that's a little bit of a synopsis of what's been going on, what Jane's Revenge is. You know, there's many of you that might not have heard about it because this is the sort of stuff that mainstream media don't want to talk about. You know, they'll talk all day about a women's march or a pro-choice rally where everyone's wearing the fucking pink hats and a bunch of white liberal ladies. They don't like to talk about people throwing bricks or blowing shit up. They don't like to talk about that because they don't want you to get no funny ideas. Okay. So that's our job here at Entitled Millennials to talk about it a little bit. Okay, so there has been some articles kind of touching on what happened, a series of events along the firebombings. We're going to dive into that a little bit. And we'll get to reading the communique, the first and the second communiques that were issued by Jane's Revenge. So let's go ahead and jump into this here, guys. We got this first article right here from the Washington Times. It says, police investigate claim that Jane's Revenge attacked Wisconsin Family Action Building. Police are investigating after a group calling itself Jane's Revenge reportedly claimed responsibility for Sunday's attack on the Wisconsin Family Action Building in a message of warning of more violence unless pro-life organizations disband. Jane's Revenge issued a first communique via journalist Robert Evans, who writes for the Netherlands-based Bellingcat, after unknown perpetrators set the group's office on fire and wrote pro-abortion graffiti on the outside wall. 2 Molotov cocktails were found at the scene. Got a little more reading from this one, then we'll jump into reading the communique here. It says, Mr. Evans, that's the journalist who circulated the communique and shed some light on this. Mr. Evans linked the name Jane's Revenge to the Jane Collective, an underground abortion service operating from 1969 to 73 in Chicago. I love that that's the root of the name there, Jane's Revenge. I think there was also a video game named after Jane's Revenge. I wonder if there's some correlation there. This is a tweet from Robert Evans. Earlier this week, the Office of Wisconsin Anti-Abortion Organization was firebombed. I have received a statement from the group claiming responsibility. They call themselves Jane's Revenge, a reference to the Jane Collective. And if you can see there, if the image is clear enough, some of the graffiti that was on the building in Madison, Wisconsin says, if abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either. Got a tweet here as well from the Wisconsin Family Action Clinic here. It says, if the intention of the attack was to scare us, the assailants have failed. In fact, this attack only hardens our resolve to keep going and push back. We are standing for freedom and for life, and we will not give in. We will not back down. Okay. Freedom and life. Freedom coming from a anti-abortion group. That's a little bit ironic, right? You know, so we'll get into this more a little later, but this tweet here coming out of Wisconsin Family Action is one of the reasons why, while I support Jane's Revenge, I have a little bit of trepidation about what some of the results of this sort of campaign might be. I mean, in heart and spirit, I'm fucking there, but we'll have a discussion about maybe some of the implications, because the point I'm trying to make here is the thing with Christians, if you go, and this isn't to condemn going against them, because, I mean, we fucking have to. These people are just getting increasingly more insane. But the thing with Christians is they got a real martyr complex. Probably because their big sky daddy also had a martyr complex, right? When you, anytime you put the screws of Christians, it's kind of like the Hydra. You cut one head off and 2 more spring up, and it's even more pissed than before. So that's kind of an issue I might have with this, a worry rather, maybe was a better phrase for it, that by perpetuating violence against these groups, as much as we may want to, it might lead to an escalation and the resolve of Christians, man. I mean, it's hard to beat them because they're convinced that their God loves them and has them as the chosen people. Okay. So, the Romans learned this the hard way. They fed them to lions, they crucified them, they did all this wild shit. And it didn't seem to help. So that's a concern I might have. But let's jump into this communique here, guys. I want to read this for you. Got the communique here. It says, first communique. This is not a declaration of war. War has been upon us for decades. A war which we did not want and did not provoke. Too long have we been attacked for asking for basic medical care. Too long have we been shot, bombed, and forced into childbirth without consent. This was only a warning. We demand the disbanding of all anti-choice establishments, fake clinics, and violent anti-choice groups within the next 30 days. This is not a mere difference of opinion, as some have framed it. We are literally fighting for our lives. We will not sit still while we are killed and forced into servitude. We have run thin on patience and mercy for those who seek to strip us of what little autonomy we have left. As you continue to bomb clinics and assassinate doctors with impunity, so too shall we adopt increasingly extreme tactics to maintain freedom over our own bodies. We are forced to adopt the minimum military requirement for a political struggle. Again, this was only a warning. Next time, the infrastructure of the enslavers will not survive. Medical imperialism will not face a passive enemy. Wisconsin is the first flashpoint, but we are all over the U.S., and we will issue no further warnings. And we will not stop. We will not back down, nor will we hesitate to strike until the inalienable right to manage our own health is returned to us. We are not one group, but many. We are in your city. We are in every city. Your repression only strengthens our accompliceship and resolve. Jane's Revenge. All right, guys, so there's a few things in there. Right off the bat, the first thing that comes to mind here is if we continue to see this form of resistance violence and it becomes impossible for the mainstream media to stay silent on it, we already know the spin that's coming. The spin is going to be that the radical left, the devil worshippers, are striking out against good Christians. And they will use that to justify all sorts of other retaliatory violence, right? But this is the thing here, and this is what you don't hear about in the news again, because they don't like to talk about violence or the escalation or the behind-the-scenes type of shit. Women have been women and allies of women who perform abortions or who advocate for pro-choice in the form of activism or legally in the halls of power have faced violence from anti-choice groups for fucking forever, for generations, man, for decades. They've been facing this sort of shit. I mean, how many times have you heard of a doctor being fucking killed or their house bombed or shot at or threatened with death threats? How many times have you seen video either from news media or online or in a fucking Lifetime movie, right? Excuse me, where you have seen women trying to go into an abortion clinic or a Planned Parenthood clinic, and they are attacked, and they've had things thrown at them, and they've been threatened with hell and physical fucking material violence on this plane of existence. I mean, this is the only time, I mean, enlighten me if somebody knows more, because this is admittedly a relatively new topic to me. But how many times have you seen violence against women, against pro-choice people, as compared to this as far as I know, is the first real instance in a long time that I've heard of retaliatory violence against that sort of violence from the left, from pro-choice people. And frankly, it's long overdue. Whether or not you agree with a violence approach, a people's guerrilla war campaign, maybe you want to call it that. I don't know if that's maybe the right phrase, but time and time we've seen this endlessly. We've seen women die from forced childbirth, suffer health repercussions their entire life from forced childbirth. Like I said, death, all kinds of violence, endlessly. Reproductive violence, physical violence against women that are pro-choice, that don't want to fucking carry a fucking baby in the womb, man. And this is the first time we've seen any real retaliatory violence come out. So we're going to just dispel that narrative that we know is coming right away, right? And there's another thing with this, too, going along with that. What's the saying? Fuck around and find out, right? Fuck around and find out. This is what happens. Whether or not you agree with the violence, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And I'm not saying this will lead to a revolution, but you're going to see the way things are going. You're going to see this more of this kind of violence for a whole variety of issues, not just women's reproductive health. Workers, everything. I mean, the trend that's going. If you watch the show, you know how things have been going the last 30 years. And patience is out, man. Patience is out. Radical politics is growing in all forms, both left and right. And we're not going to get any action from Democrats on any issues ever. We're not. It's just stop. If you think that, just fucking stop. If we were going to get action for voting for the lesser two evils, we would have fucking seen something by now. Can't even get an infrastructure bill through. So as inaction continues, we're going to see more of this because people are fed up. I don't think the average suburban liberal, and this is a message directly to you guys, I don't think you understand what the lower classes, the less economically inclined working people have been through the last 30 years, and especially the last 10. I don't think you can fathom it. I think you have a sense of justice as a liberal, and you maybe identify with some of these issues, but you're not living it. Not really, man. You're not experiencing the homelessness. You're not experiencing the working fucking 3 jobs to survive. You're not experiencing the fucking reproductive health violence. You're not experiencing it. And I just want to drive this home to you. This may seem out of left field to you guys that maybe identify with the issues but don't agree with the means to the end. But people are fucking suffering beyond probably anything you've suffered in your fucking life. And they have been for generations or all of their adult life in the case of younger folks like me. And I know what it's like. But I'm in a position where I'm living fairly well. But because I've come from it, I fucking understand. And I'm going to tell you right now, with there being no recourse and your little Democrats doing nothing to help these people, expect more of it and prepare for it. And at the end of the day, and I'm going on a tangent here, but you're going to have a choice to either side with or either at the very least not condemn the people who agree with you on the issues resorting to violence. Or you can side with the oppressors, man. That's what it's going to come down to before the end if we don't see any change. And we aren't. So yeah, that's the first communique that came out of this group known as Jane's Revenge. That was about a month ago after a firebombing at the family clinic in Madison, Wisconsin. So part of this dialogue is also going to be, people will spin this like they're destroying or attacking women's health services, and that's counterproductive. Okay. But this is part of a larger issue with these women's health clinics, quote unquote. Okay. Because they offer services. Some of them are better than others. Some of them will even offer contraceptives and et cetera, pregnancy. Those aspects are great, but I want to be clear about something. This is not just your Planned Parenthood or your fucking women's health clinic with no agenda. That's not what this is. These are facilities that are owned and operated and perpetuated by evangelical theocratic fucking psychopaths. And they use this as, I guess you would say, their form of praxis, their form of engaging with working people. You know, this is their form of outreach. They offer these certain services so that they can indoctrinate women or put fear in women or guilt in women about having abortion. And as we've seen declining funding and infrastructure for social services in this country, we have seen groups like Family Action here, or later on we'll talk about Compass Medical Center or something like that, fill this void where we used to have Planned Parenthoods, where we used to have state facilities that inform women on abortion, on STDs, on reproductive rights. As we've seen those phased out, we've seen these right-wing, theocratically financed organizations come in. Okay, so right here I have Wisconsin Family Action. This was the organization that was firebombed in Wisconsin. Okay, right there, their first slogan is marriage, family, life, liberty. Not a good sign right off the bat, is it? It says it was founded in 2006. It says its purpose is to inform Wisconsin citizens about pro-family legislative and cultural issues. Involve Wisconsin citizens in activities that strengthen the family. Again, this might sound good to people that are, I don't know if I want to use the word reactionary, but, lumpen proletariat. They don't understand, they like words like liberty and family, right? It might sound good, right, when you read it like that, but there's a fucking agenda behind it, man. Prepare Wisconsin citizens for elections as the law provides, advocating for Republicans or Democrats that are anti-abortion. Advocate in the state legislature on cultural and legislative issues that affect the family. That's lobbying, again, for anti-abortion legislation, right? Says mission. Here's the kicker. You ready? To advance Judeo-Christian principles and values in Wisconsin by strengthening, preserving, and promoting marriage, family, life, and liberty. How's that? We're going in a little deeper here. So this is what I'm saying. It's not just a fucking women's health clinic. Something that should be ran by the state or by, if not the state, fine. If you're against the state, fine. You don't want evil Planned Parenthood doing abortions. Fine. At the very least, it should be a secular organization, because guess what, man? Not all women is Christians. And they don't believe your bullshit. And so the only fucking clinic in an area ought not to be a Christian bullshit clinic. Maybe? No, probably not. You probably don't agree with me on that, do you? Now, going into their website a little bit further, I found some more stuff regarding their agenda. And just to give you a perspective of the sort of people these guys are, what else they advocate for. It says, on Thursday afternoon, Governor Evers declared another statewide public health emergency executive order number 82 that begins on Saturday, August 1, and continues through September 28th. He also issued emergency order number 1, which mandates face coverings, aka masks, statewide. While the order does include a number of exemptions or exceptions, such as you don't have to blah, 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 the order raises questions about whether, for instance, churches and private schools have the right to exercise autonomy in this matter. So, yeah, that same organization is a bunch of anti-vax, a bunch of anti-mask weirdos. Okay, and just to be clear, if you're on this channel and you're leaning a little bit towards that anti-vax camp because you have concerns about big pharma, don't just shut the video off. I recognize those concerns. They're valid. But whatever concerns or skepticism you have about the vaccine, its efficacy, or pharmaceutical companies, I'm sure that tends to be a lot more valid than a bunch of weirdo Christians saying it's that masks are somehow, the new version of them being fed to lions in the fucking Roman Coliseum. All right. Just putting that out there. All right, guys. So that encompasses the firebombing in Madison, Wisconsin, where, as far as I'm aware, Jane's Revenge first unveiled themselves again, right? That was about a month ago. Kind of covered the first communique. What it's talking about, it wants the disbandment of all anti-choice establishments and theocratic groups, something which I myself would support. When it comes to theocracy, fascism, white supremacy, as much as I would like to be a free speech absolutist, when you get into those sorts of groups, I start having my real doubts about that kind of perspective. And I go back and forth on this. But, groups like that, theocrats, fascists, white supremacists, allowing them to have freedom of speech, freedom of organization, threatens everyone else's freedoms, as we've seen, because the concerted effort in the alliance built between these sort of ideologies and their organizations has threatened everyone else's rights. Okay, rights as workers, rights as women, rights as trans people, rights as people of color. Because we have permitted these groups that view other people, either because they're not Christian or because they're not white, as subhuman or against God, because we've allowed them to organize and given them the rights that are bequeathed to us in the Constitution, they have used those rights to try to strip everybody else of their rights. So we can get into this discussion another time, but I tend to lead towards the camp that this is what happens when you let these people talk, man. And that's a discussion for another time. Maybe we can have it in the comments as well, But fast forwarding here, this is coming about a day or two ago. I got this from New York Post. I'm sorry, I know it's New York Post, but like I said, the media is really trying not to cover this as much. There might be more articles covered by more reputable periodicals or tabloids by now. But upon getting the research ago yesterday, this is what I came across. The other one was the National Review, or some weird right-winger one, and I did not want to push that. So New York Post here says, anti-abortion Buffalo pregnancy center allegedly firebombed. This is coming out of David Proper. Got an image here of Compass Care. Anti-abortion Buffalo pregnancy center Compass Care was allegedly firebombed by pro-abortion rights activist group. Let's get into this here a little bit, huh? Let's see. An anti-abortion Buffalo pregnancy center was allegedly firebombed, quote unquote, overnight. Police in Amherst, New York, confirmed an investigation is underway after a fire broke out at the Compass Care Community Medical Facility. Compass Care leaders are blaming a pro-choice group for firebombing the office, and said graffiti was scrawled on the wall that stated, "Jane was here." Fucking love that. Graffiti on the building left by the arsonist refers to the abortion terrorist group Jane's Revenge. I wouldn't give them that name. I'd give them, feminist guerrilla fighters. That's my leaning. The organization said in a Facebook post, Compass Care said Jane's Revenge is responsible for another fire that occurred at an anti-abortion facility in Wisconsin last month. Windows in the reception room and nurse's office at the Buffalo location were broken and fires were lit, Compass Care said. Photos were posted online of the damage. You got an image there for you guys. Amherst Town Supervisor Brian Coppola said in a statement he was, quote unquote, disgusted by the incident. Well, I'm disgusted by you, cocksucker. Broken windows of the Compass Care in Amherst, New York after it was attacked on June 7, 2022. Jane was here. There it is. Jane was there. Graffiti that Compass Care claimed was written by abortion terrorist group Jane's Revenge. A violent response is never the answer, quote unquote, Coppola added. There is no place in Amherst for such attacks. Amherst police are working with our partners to continue its investigation to hold those responsible accountable for their actions. Compass Care CEO Jim Hardin vowed to rebuild the center because women deserve better and preborn boys and girls deserve protection. Oh my God. Jim, go ahead and rebuild that fucker. I'm sure they'll be back. So yeah, that's coming out of this recent firebombing, this time in Buffalo. Right. And apparently this occurred because there was a leaked memo coming out of SCOTUS. I'm sorry I don't have that for you guys. Maybe you can dig around yourself and Google. If you find it, drop a link in the comments. I'm sure others would appreciate having that information. But apparently this attack occurred as a result of a leaked document coming out of the SCOTUS that said something along the lines that the Supreme Court is most definitely going to or plans to overturn Roe v. Wade in the near future. And along with this firebombing, it looks like James Revenge released another communique, a final communique, apparently. But before we get into that, we'll read that towards the end here. Again, I just want to point out to you guys how these organizations, under the guise of being a women's clinic, actually have a much darker theocratic ulterior motive. Okay. This is from the Compass Care website. It says, erasing the need for abortion. That is their slogan. Now a good start again. It says, about _ mission. Because all people are made in the image of God and are equally valuable, Compass Care is dedicated to erasing the need for abortion by transforming a woman's fear into confidence. That sounds good, right? You know, so that's a thing here too I want to touch on. A lot of these groups will have a slogan like that, erasing the need for abortion. We're not against limiting a woman's choice. We just want to try to do whatever we can to stop abortions. And they might have a more liberal tendency towards providing contraceptives. You know, some of these groups, I mean, admittedly are worse than others, but they all in the end have the same agenda, which is to limit a woman's choice. But like this group, I believe, does provide contraceptives. You'll have some even farther right, even crazier Christian groups that look at contraceptive as like an abomination, right? And this is just sidelining here for a second. This is also a good point to talk about why the abortion thing isn't just about abortion. Okay, and you'll hear a lot of women's rights activists make this claim or take this perspective as well. It starts with abortion. Okay, it starts with limiting a woman's right to choose if they want to have a child or not, which already then locks them into poverty because they don't have if they're poor working women that can't get an abortion, well then they'll be stuck with 1, 2, or 3 kids that they maybe don't want or can't afford. You know, locking them into the lowest possible rung of the socioeconomic ladder, right? So you have that, and then you have the laws like what's going on in Texas, where any doctor or woman having an abortion, even if they go to do it outside of state lines, can be convicted for murder or manslaughter or some shit. And what happens when you get convicted of a felony? You lose your right to vote. Okay? So it's a process, man. You know, you limit contraceptives, you limit abortion, you strip those rights, you make it illegal, women turn to it because it's their only way to have any level of economic freedom. And then they're criminals, and then they lose their right to vote, just like has been done with black people, black citizens in the United States in mass incarceration and the war on drugs. I mean, upon many other things of which its purpose was, it was also to disenfranchise the urban black voter, so they could no longer have a say in society. And I don't have statistics, but I wonder just how many, probably millions of black folks no longer have a say in our electoral system because they've been convicted as felons and have lost the right to vote. And then you couple that with the gerrymandering and the voter suppression, and you've got a system that calls itself a democracy, but upon which people of color don't actually have a say, right? And this is part of that as well. It's part of perpetuating patriarchy, white supremacy, making sure, we'll have a democracy, but only for white folks that have money is the idea. Let's go on here a little bit, guys. This is from their timeline of actions they've had, things that they've pushed, It says April of 2019, Compass Care adopted Buffalo Pregnancy Care Center, Northtown Pregnancy Center, and Southtown's Pregnancy Center with the united goal of cutting Buffalo abortions by 50% in 5 years. In just 2 years, Buffalo went from reaching 1 in 100 considering abortion to 1 in 3. This is what I was talking about. Adopted Buffalo Pregnancy Care Center, Northtown Pregnancy Center, and Southtown's Pregnancy Center. Now, I didn't do the research on this, so I can't say what kind of pregnancy centers, those facilities were. They might have also been anti-choice. But this is still an example of what these organizations do. They have unlimited funds pushed by some of the wealthiest fucking motherfuckers in the country, some of the biggest corporations, because corporations will always choose theocracy and fascism over a left agenda. Okay? Because these motherfuckers love capitalism, and they have a whole prosperity gospel now that says that we get to be rich through capitalism because Jesus loves us the most. Right. Anyway, getting off topic here. But this is an example of the way in which they acquire or lobby to have state-ran or secular women's clinics shut down so that they can open up these ones and push their anti-abortion, theocratic, weird bullshit. And look at that. They had a plan to cut abortions by 50% in 5 years. In just 2 years, Buffalo went from reaching 1 in 100 considering abortion to 1 in 3. That's the effect of this kind of propaganda. That's the effect of eliminating any other options for women's reproductive health clinics and handing it all over to, privately owned 501c theocratic weirdos. Okay. And this has a generational effect because you propagandize and guilt trip one generation of women enough into, maybe they were considering abortion, then going to this clinic, and then now they won't, and then they push that onto their children, that it's wrong to have an abortion. This is what you end up with. We got some more here as well from them, some of the stuff they've done. Compass Care. November of 2019, filed lawsuit against Governor Cuomo. New York Senate Bill S660, aka Boss Bill, targets the pro-life beliefs of Christian organizations, including churches, by making it illegal to hire or manage staff based on pro-life beliefs. Partnering with Alliance Defending Freedom, Compass Care filed a lawsuit, Compass Care v. Cuomo, defending Christian organizations' right to hire pro-life people. Yeah, so that's just an example of how, they want to flood all of the women's reproductive health infrastructure with right-wing theocratic lunatics. Okay. And we can have a discussion about this, and I'll just give a brief little hot take, so maybe shut me down on it if it's maybe not the proper analysis. But my instinct right now, thinking out loud, remember the name of the show, is if you're a theocrat, you probably should not be in a position to offer women's reproductive health. I think that should be handled by people who are secular, who don't have their religious biases affecting another woman's choice or decision making. It should be hard science. It should be health concerns. Jesus shouldn't be playing a factor in women's choice when they go to a clinic, man. I think these places should be fucking illegal. And if you are associated with a weird Christian theocratic organization, you shouldn't be up to be hired at a secular facility either. Because we've all heard stories of some nurse, even at a secular facility, was like, you shouldn't do this. God will hate you. God will hate you. We've heard stories like that, and I don't think they have a place in this. It perpetuates a system that guilt trips women into not making the choice that's either right for them emotionally, health-wise, or economically, man. Plain and simple. And here's the real kicker coming out of this Compass Care group. 2022. Preparation for a post-Roe America. These groups know it's coming. They've been building this up for a long time. Seizing judgeships, seizing lobbying positions, representatives and state, local governments. I mean, they've been building a coalition of theocrats, like something straight out of The Handmaid's Tale, man. So they're ready for this. So yeah, 2022 preparation for a post-Roe America. Building the infrastructure by adding 2 more service areas, the capital region, and online through telemedicine to serve 50% more women and their preborn babies. Preborn babies, that's all you need to know. So yeah, that gives a pretty clear, very, very clear analysis or perspective on how these facilities work and their role in all of this, into turning the United States into a theocratic, fascist, white supremacist hellscape. Because I also want to touch on something else. The way in which this anti-abortion shit ties in with white supremacy, patriarchy. Obviously, the tie to patriarchy is obvious. But a lot of these groups also have ties to white supremacy. And the reason why they don't want people to have abortions, this is one of many, many, many reasons, is because they want to continue to propagate the white race. Now, I can't remember the name of this organization. I want to say it's like the 4 Arrows or the 4 Feathers or something. I actually recently just found out about it from that Our Father documentary. If you haven't watched that, check it out, because it's about a fertility clinic doctor that impregnated like hundreds of women with his own semen. Real sick fucker, going in the other room and vigorously jerking off into a fucking vial and then raping women with it. I mean, you can say what you want, it's fucking rape, man. Putting his own DNA into a woman, man. That's just rape with a few, steps skipped, man. So anyway, they speculated in that documentary that this guy was part of this weird online cult or Christian community that's about the whole premise is to have as many white babies as possible. And they give it a real sugar-coated suburban white film. No neo-Nazi lightning bolts and shit like that. It's real clean and quiet, so your average suburban white can think, hey, maybe this is a good idea. Rebranding, if you will. So this all ties into that as well, man. I mean, all of this, I'm maybe not giving the best analysis of how it's all tied together, but it's all tied together. It's all tied together. The white supremacy, the anti-abortion shit, the fucking fascists, the fucking libertarian, unfettered capitalism, it all works together in a real simpatico way to create some form of fucking hellscape that we're living in now. And we'll continue to see get more and more and worse and worse, right? And, this is just a good point as to why we have to take every issue seriously. Back when I started this channel, I had, I guess you'd call, maybe some reactionary views about, just different things. I was never really hateful, but I just had, generally reactionary views because I'm white, male, from rural America. Okay. And that's all there is around here is reactionary views. And it took me time to unlearn this and to understand the interconnected ways in which white supremacy, fascism, corporatism, technocratic domination, all this stuff fits together, man. Right. And like I said, maybe I'm not giving the best analysis on that. You can do some more digging yourself. But I mean, this all fits together. And this is why we need to take everyone's issue seriously and give it respect and allow those voices to speak. Because it all comes together, man. It all comes together, be it trans issues, LGBT generally, women's issues, people of color issues, issues from the third world involving imperialism, all of it, man. It all comes together. And maybe I've become a woko or whatever the fuck you want to call me. I don't really care. I've come to realize how all intertwined it is and how we all have. This is what solidarity is taking other people's issues seriously, taking the abortion issues seriously, taking the trans issues seriously. And there's, groups on the left that don't lean that way, or, there is something to be said about liberals co-opting identity issues and turning into this woke cancel culture. And you can make a case against that. We've discussed some of that before on this channel, but I just want to I'm rambling here, but I just want to drive home the point that this is why you stand in solidarity with groups like Jane's Revenge. You stand in solidarity with pro-choice groups. I mean, every issue matters, and if you can show up and turn up, and lock arms, that's where strength comes from. We don't get strength as working people of all stripes by saying your issue doesn't matter. So I just want to put that out there on you guys. But yeah, going on with this here, guys, I want to touch on and read for you the second communique coming out of Jane's Revenge here. It says, Jane's Revenge, Night of Rage, an autonomous call to action against patriarchal supremacy. Within the month, we anticipate a verdict will be issued that overturns Roe v. Wade, setting in motion an evisceration of abortion access across the so-called United States. This is an event that should inspire rage in millions of people who can get pregnant, and yet the response thus far has been tepid. We have agonized over this apparent absence of indignation. Why is it that we are so afraid to unleash hell upon those who are destroying us? Fear of state repression is valid, but this goes deeper than that. Your anger has been stolen from you. To this we say, no more. We need to get angry. We need the state to feel our full wrath. We need to express this madness fully and with ferocity. We need to quit containing ourselves. We need them to be afraid of us. Last week, an evil creature slaughtered 19 children and 2 teachers in their classroom in Texas. While some may call this horrific act senseless or random, we know that that's not the case. We know that this is an act of male domination and patriarchal violence meant to make women, children, and teachers live in fear. We know it is deeply connected to the reproductive violence about to be unleashed on this land by an illegitimate institution founded in white male supremacy. We cannot think of a clearer example in this time of the need for an autonomously organized self-defense networks. We cannot think of a clearer example of the desperate need for those who can get pregnant to learn how to confront misogynistic violence directly. We also believe this unlearning of our self-containment can begin in the streets when we organize alongside one another to confront state forces of evil and domination. Several weeks ago, we watched and waited as self-proclaimed feminist organizations, quote-unquote, and nonprofits took the lead on arranging their demure little rallies for freedom. We were told to let them handle it and to defer to the political machinery that has thus far failed to secure our liberation. In a world where the news media has an attention span of about 24 hours on their best day, we knew these hollow gestures would fail to capture attention. We knew we were witnessing counterinsurgency in action. We cannot sit idly by anymore while our anger is yet again channeled into Democratic Party fundraisers and peace parades with the police. We were even told we must cooperate with them because they work alongside abortion providers and clinic escorts. A group of people who at this moment in time cannot possibly risk their lives or their livelihoods any further than they already are. We honor these providers in their service. We do not honor those who would use them as a shield against direct and militant action. We believe the greatest honor we could give them would be to act meaningfully in their name. The time to act was decades ago. The next best time is now. Whatever form your fury takes, the first step is feeling it. The next step is carrying that anger out into the world and expressing it physically. Consider this your call to action. On the night the final ruling is issued, a specific date we cannot yet predict, but we know is arriving imminently, we are asking for courageous hearts to come out after dark. Whoever you are and wherever you are, we are asking for you to do what you can to make your anger known. We have selected a time of 8 p.m. for actions nationwide to begin. But know that this is a general guideline. There may be other considerations involved in planning time and place. We do not claim to speak for every community or crew. We are simply calling out to you, and we hope you answer our cries. To the cis male allies who would be interested in joining us in the streets, we say you are certainly welcome, but you must use your privilege to shield and support us in a way that also enables us to get angry. Do not police us. Do not tell us what is and isn't appropriate, but do aid us when we are in need. We must also say, do not wait until the verdict arrives to organize. Make plans now. Take action now. It is not enough to share images on Twitter and Instagram. We cannot sustain this movement any longer with the same few hundred people who have been beaten down over and over again. We must not only circulate this call on social media, but must reach out to communities who may not be in touch with radical circles online. Mass action requires mass outreach. We would not be issuing this call if we did not believe in our bones that this kind of action is possible. We have witnessed the women of Argentina, Mexico, and Poland organize autonomously for their reproductive liberation. We know it can be done, but we need every soul reading this to do their part. To those who work to oppress us, if abortion isn't safe, you aren't either. We are everywhere. Signed, Jane's Revenge. Ooh, man, that's some powerful shit. Just give me a second here, guys. That got me, that fucking got me riled up, man. That's the sort of, say what you want, maybe you don't agree with violent action. That shit got me pumped up, motherfucker. That got me pumped up. That got me feeling a power and heart from my fucking sister comrades everywhere, man. And there's a lot of things in this, and I don't know if I'll do the best job breaking it down, but there's a lot in here that's important. I recommend, we posted this communique on our Facebook channel. You know the link. We posted on the Instagram. You know the link. We posted on Twitter. You know the link. We'll put it down there if you don't. Go and read it yourself and mull it over. Because I might not give the best analysis here, and I want you to make your own inferences about it. But a lot of things here. Namely, the talk about nonprofits and Democratic Party stooges, doing nice little parades and whatnot for, activism. They make a point that it's not enough. Whether or not you agree with their means, fine. That's on you to decide what you want to do to engage. But we had 1 million plus strong women's march back when Trump got elected. Did it do shit? Just being honest, did it do shit? No. None of it is doing shit. And the Democrats don't care about it, man. They use this issue to fundraise, like they said in this communique here. If they wanted something done about it, they would have done something about it back when Obama had a supermajority or somewhere along the fucking way. And maybe you've seen some minor legislation incurred on the state and local level, but that is not going to be enough in the end, man. Not with the array of powerful right-wing theocratic fascist organizations that are against everybody, man. Against women and their reproductive health, against every fucking group of minorities and disenfranchised people everywhere on the planet, man. It's not going to be enough. And I'll end my little analysis or commentary here and let you make your own decisions about it. But say what you want about the means to the end. That is a powerful fucking message. And it's got me wanting to mobilize. And I hope it's got you guys willing to mobilize as well. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for you. I just wanted to lay out some of the events that have been surrounding Roe v. Wade here with a specific emphasis on Jane's Revenge. Because Jane's Revenge is many things, but it is indicative of what you can expect to see more of in the future. Militant action, violence, as people continue to lose faith in the system that it can do anything to change this. And you don't have to agree with violent action for, legal purposes. I do not condone violence. Right. No, it's bad. Don't do it. But, it's up for you guys to decide what you believe is the right course of action. You don't have to believe in violent action. You don't have to agree with Jane's revenge, methods. But for me, I take a policy of, while I do not condone violence, I also don't condemn it. The IRA, in conjunction with Sinn Féin during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, had a similar policy, the ballot of the bullet, where Sinn Féin, the political organ of the IRA, never condemned the violence from the IRA because they realized that they had the same objective, even if the means were different. So going forward, the number one thing is I hope that you will organize in your own way that you see fit. Whatever it is, whatever is in your wheelhouse, whatever is in your crew's wheelhouse for this issue or whatever issue you have. Organize. Get together. Have the dinner together. Build community. Whatever stripe that takes. Online isn't enough, right? But going forward, as we continue to see more of this sort of violence, depending on what form it takes, things can become sectarian, and sectarian violence should be condemned because it's sloppy and it does more to, hurt the movement ideologically or public relations wise than it does to aid it. But in lieu of that sort of sectarian violence, we as people on the left, whatever your stripe is, should be hesitant to condemn it. Because these are people that stand strong in their convictions. And at the end of the day, if things really pop off and it becomes straight out like a fucking copy and paste image of a Nazi Germany without any of the masks and facades that we still have now, guess who's going to be fighting back? It's not going to be your liberal that says that they condemn the action of Jane's revenge. It's going to be Jane's revenge. It's going to be Antifa. It's going to be militant people. So that's worth considering as you move forward and form your opinions or perspectives on increasingly, growing tensions over these kind of issues. But yeah, guys, that's all I had for you. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think about Jane's revenge. Maybe in polite legalese, tell me what you think about violent action. Make sure you self-censor a little bit in the comment section if we're going to have a discussion about this. Otherwise, do you think this is effective? Let's talk about the efficacy of this kind of violence. One of the things that comes to mind, and this is not to condemn Jane's revenge at all, is Lenin's perspective on the organizations that engaged in more, I guess you'd say, terrorist activity, bombing and things like that, things that weren't necessarily concerted into an actual people's war campaign that could be protracted to carry out revolution. But on the same side, he sort of condemned those actions not for their lack of moral justification, but, he called into question their efficacy. And I think maybe rightfully so. But on the other hand, he also held those folks up that were involved in the 1905 strike and intermediate revolution. He held them up as martyrs. And I think maybe we can learn from Lenin's perspective on that time period as well. So anyway, I'm rambling here. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all this. Let's get a conversation going. Do you think Roe v. Wade's going to go overturned? It's really starting to look that way. If that happens, what, means justify the ends in your book? Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. But all right, guys, I've gone on long enough with this here, guys. As always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for hanging out with me and having these discussions. I really appreciate it. If you guys can, please support me financially, either with a one-time PayPal donation or becoming a patron. I know several of you, I think 3 or 4 of you, have become $3 Patreon members in the near past here recently, and I really fucking appreciate that, guys, because it's $3 to you. But if 100 of the regular subscribers become $3 patrons, a lot of us, I don't know your financial situation, but $3, most of us won't notice that missing. But when $100 or 100 people donate $3, that's $300. That's fucking 2 days off of work I can take to do more content, because I am committed to doing this, and the financial resources makes a huge difference, especially recently with how inflation's been. That extra 100 or so I'm making right now, 80 to 100 plus tips, it's made a huge fucking difference. So I just want to thank all of you that like and subscribe and comment every video. Fuck yeah. I know some of you are broke. I get it. I've been there. That's fucking huge too. I don't want to diminish that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But a seriously special thank you to everyone that's become a patron or given a PayPal donation. It's fucking huge, guys. It has saved my ass countless times. And the truth of the matter is, if I want to take this to the next level and have the time to find more subscribers, have the time to create Patreon exclusive content, have the time to grow it and increase it and cover more topics. I mean, I get to cover one topic every week, and there's like 10 I want to talk about, you know, and I could cover 5, 6, 7 of them maybe if I had the time, because I have the financial resources to take time off of work. So again, if you want to, please support me financially on Patreon or PayPal. I'll put the links in the description, put them across the screen here. So again, guys, great hanging out with you, and I'll speak with you again soon. Bye.
Yes, I know.